Welcome to the Bryce Eddy Show. So today, my guest is one of my best friends in all the world, and that is AJ Hurley.
Thank you, brother. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Thanks for the jacket.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I give him this beautiful jacket.
I could never afford this jacket, ladies and gentlemen.
I have a problem, and I buy too many clothes.
I didn't know being friends with you would pay off to this degree.
Yeah. I pay my friends, and it's helpful. So I want, before we get into it, first I want to give a shout out to everybody.
Everyone.
Yeah, thank you for coming in, joining us for this live podcast and for coffee at the Old State Saloon. Shout out to Mark for opening up this place.
My friends didn't even come. It sounds like a good idea until it's 2 a.m. on a Friday night. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, we were smoking some cigars. And we watched an incredibly disappointing fight, which I'm going to talk about.
Yeah.
In fact, let's warm up talking about that because, so I love the fight game. I love boxing. I'm mixed martial artist by background. AJ also trains jiu-jitsu.
I do.
And, we're good buddies as a result of that as well. In fact, the first time we met, he's like, looking at my ears, hey, do you train?
100%.
And we were instant pals. But I hate that they do that to us, okay? Nothing is authentic these days, and I feel like we're being manipulated all the time. There was a rule set that went out for that fight between, Jake Paul can, it's his thing. I'll give him some blessing that guy is the greatest marketeer I think on the planet. He fights retired boxers, mixed martial artists, and other people that don't box. The only boxer he ever fought, he lost against, that was Tommy Fury. And if he was actually fighting ranked boxers, he would be embarrassed. But he likes it, right? He likes boxing. He's been working hard at it. He's not untalented. And clearly, I mean, the guy knows how to create a payday for everybody. The deal was that Tyson, if he did knock him out in the first few rounds, it was a sliding scale of his compensation. So, so he was
zero money, first round knockout, right?
Yeah, so he was incentivized. Now, this is if the reports are true on what the deal totally was. And so, again, you can't believe everything. But what you can believe is your own eyes. And if you watch Tyson's training videos... that guy still can punch.
Peekaboo style. And one thing that I saw is, make no mistake, Tyson can still move. I mean, that guy can move. And it doesn't matter that he's almost 60 years old. That guy was like, it was just, you could tell he was inhibited by something.
Well, and I mean, look, age is going to wreck your endurance for something like that, right? Sure. It's gonna take away a lot of your power. It's gonna, so you're gonna be diminished no matter how talented you are. But he did not come out swinging like he did in any of his videos, like in his past. He popped him early on in the first round, and you saw Jake like, whoa, like, okay, this guy can punch.
What a real boxer feels like.
Right. You saw a moment, and then you saw him get cautious. You know?
Yeah.
And then they fell into a groove. But the thing that bothers me again is we have been manipulated for so long that everything is fake, everything's a show. So that creates, and I don't know about you guys, but in my mind, when everything's fake, when everything seems like we're being manipulated, when games are being played with everything, it just jades me.
100%.
And I'm disappointed because I would have loved to see a little bit of a spark. Many people would have loved to see Jake Paul get knocked out.
Me, I'm one of those guys.
Because he's got the mouth of a marketeer. But anyway, grave disappointment in my opinion.
I don't understand personally, like, if you're Jake Paul, what is he he's still in his 20s?
I think he's 28 or something like that.
So it's like, dude, why you have nothing to win other than a payday. So how sleazy are you that you just want to fight a 60-year-old man? Like, I don't get that personally.
Well, okay, so there's the other side of it that, getting Tyson out there. So Tyson isn't flush with cash. Tyson's doing better now, but for a while there, he was like broke. near destitute. And so, giving this guy a payday like that, I mean, 10, 20 million, whatever the final payday was, is cool. Bringing some excitement to the boxing world. I mean, you got everybody to watch. That's cool.
But what happens if he knocks him out? I mean, there's no honor in that. You're knocking out a 60-year-old man.
I agree. I don't think that there was much danger of that.
True,
with Tyson, and you watched them, dance around the ring. Anyway, guys, I was upset.
Rightfully so. So everything's fake. We used to be able to trust everything. Like I remember when I was a little boy growing up in the 80s. I mean, we trusted the government. We trusted our institutions. It was this common trust. I mean, perfect example. Try to get the Patriot Act passed today.
Yeah.
Unless they rammed that down everyone's throat, there's no way. I mean, the level of untrust in the government is unprecedented, but that was not the case back. I mean, we believed weapons of mass destruction. These were all narratives that we just accepted as fact. Like, oh yeah, no, government would never lie about that kind of stuff as a pretext for war. Really? Give me a break, man. Like this is the new world that we live in, where you can't even trust a box. Well, there's lots of history of boxing. That's probably not the best analogy in the world, but the point is like, you always are asking, what's the real deal behind this? Of course, now you find out the rule set, and Tyson gets zero money if he knocks him out in the first round. Which, if you're 60 years old, if you don't knock this guy out within the first 2 rounds, you're gonna massively slow down. So that's why I do jiu-jitsu, man. I don't have to worry about getting old, and I can still grab lapels, and I can still play guard.
Pull guard. That's right. Okay, that's an inside jiu-jitsu joke there.
Yeah,
big guard puller here. All right, so so there's a couple of things that we're going to talk about. Thank you for coming to our boxing analysis.
Discussion.
But okay, so we are going to talk about the election, of course. I'm going to hit on some of the appointments and things that we're very excited about, and just kind of what these early days look like. We're also going to talk about the pro-life movement and what that means for the future, and kind of what the battle is about now. And what we should be doing now that we did have this victory, which was not insignificant.
Yep.
But first, I would love you to just give your bio background, and how we became friends, because it's relevant to that whole story.
Yeah. So I just introduced my title. I'm the National Director of Outreach and Activism at the White Rose Resistance. I don't know if you guys have heard of White Rose. But so Seth is a really good buddy of mine. Actually, Bryce is on the board for the White Rose. And so that's I got introduced to Bryce through that. We became quick buds after I saw his mangled ears. And so I have a history of kind of this gateway drug into the pro-life movement. Is I was a neonatal respiratory therapist. I put little babies on ventilators at UCLA Medical Center. And I was essentially looking into a womb every day and totally red-pilled or black-pilled on the fact that they're killing children almost to the day of birth at the same hospital that I was saving them. So babies way older than the ones that we're putting millions of dollars of resources into to save their lives. They're literally pulling the arms and legs off. And I was just overwhelmed. I was just this cannot be a thing. And it became a vivid thing because I'm looking at these children every day. I couldn't do nothing. And so I started speaking out against abortion, started speaking out. I went on a deep dive with all the fetal organ stuff, and started speaking out against that because the UCLA, UC San Francisco, all these institutions are scalping 6-month gestational babies, taking their organs and putting them on lab rats to do pharmaceutical research and develop new drugs and vaccines and all these things. So, I'm saying all the words that are going to get you, this thing censored right now. Sorry about that. But so I started getting involved. My wife and I started going down to clinics and offering to adopt people's babies and give them rent and fill up their groceries and stock their fridge, the whole thing. And became a crazy journey. And now I was at Live Action for a while. and now I'm at White Rose. It was a part of a national news story where we uncovered a box of late-term abortion babies that were found outside of a abortion clinic in Washington, D.C. That was wild. Two months before Roe v. Wade was overturned, God did this incredible thing where he just exposed late-term abortion right before, it's almost as he peeled back the curtain behind Roe a month before, or 2 months before Roe v. Wade was overturned, to let America see what she's supporting. And the first box of children ever to be opened in 20 years happened to have 115 aborted babies, and 5 of them almost full-term children. So that's a whole crazy thing.
Yeah, with evidence of late-term
partial birth abortion.
Yeah. So I mean, it was horrible.
Photoshocked the world.
Yeah, and I think probably many of you in the room have seen the photos, because it did make a massive splash and went viral, and it was horrible. And anyway, AJ was hiding out in Thousand Oaks, California, at our church for a little bit, and
licking my wounds.
Yeah, and I was asked, "Hey, do you want this guy on the podcast?" And I'm like, "Sure." And I was vaguely at the time aware of the story, because it was bubbling up, But anyway, and that's when he came in, and asked about my ears, and we had this just heart-wrenching podcast where he shared that whole story in great detail. So if you want to hear it, you can go back into the show archives. But pretty incredible story. And what's amazing about that story is, with all of the evidence, with what you could see, with these babies, there was no investigation. Washington, D.C. Police did not care. Nobody's gonna go after this. I mean, you think of how Gosnell got away with what he did with all of these, women dying, partially aborted babies, for years. I mean, it was a butchery.
Yep.
And he was able to get away with it because as a culture, nobody was going to touch it.
Well, and if you think about our conversation earlier with the unprecedented distrust in our institutions, case in point, I am so convinced that if Gosnell was to happen today, it would never see the light of day. And the reason why I say that is because we hand them the biggest, on a golden platter, so to speak, the biggest case since Gosnell. One of the babies was still in its amniotic sac. How in the world do you kill a child without it being born alive in its amniotic sac? One of the babies had the only thing wrong with it, classic partial birth abortion snip in the back of the skull. And it's just, you hand them over to them, and they say, nothing to see here. And we refuse an investigation, an autopsy. Thankfully, a couple members of Congress, Anna Paulina Luna, Ted Cruz, Marjorie Taylor Greene, have all kind of rallied around it and really tried to keep the story alive. So I'm hoping, I don't know what she just said, but hoping that we can, just maybe now that we have both houses, maybe do something with it. So
yeah, and let's get to that, kind of what the battle looks like now. Mm-hmm. But there's a couple other superheroes. The pro-life movement just walked into the room.
Yep.
Why don't you give the boys a shout out?
Yeah, Jason Storms, head of Operation Save America. He actually came on board with the White Rose in an advisory role to help me build this. Now, God's been blessing this. Just to let you know, White Rose is the fastest growing pro-life organization now in America. And we launched 5 different chapters, just getting one here in Boise started. Because I don't know if you guys know, but 2026 midterm elections, they're trying to do a ballot initiative to bring abortion back to Idaho. So the price for freedom for these children obviously is eternal vigilance. And man, it's time that the church and Americans, freedom-loving people that love life, to frankly get off our asses again. So.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I find super disturbing, is that when I had learned, and this is probably 10 or 15 years ago, that one of our friends who was worked for a crisis pregnancy center, could not get any churches in our area to have a table for them on Sanctity of Life Sunday.
Yeah.
Most of the pastors refused. Most of the pastors wouldn't do it, and our church did, and I was shocked. I was stunned. So if you wonder, why we don't have federal abortion bans or things like that, it's because we don't even have the churches.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't even have the churches committed to life in the way that they should be. And you would think that, of course, that would be a no-brainer. But even Christians that I talk to, and we had this debate on my show. We discussed this a bunch of times because there were quite a few pro-life people that were saying that they couldn't vote for Trump. They weren't interested in anybody who compromises on that. And my point to all of them is, obviously we have a binary choice, right? It's the lesser of two evils. But more importantly, my point is that we have to win Christians to the cause of life.
Totally.
How can you do by government fiat, some kind of, end to abortion if you do not have we the people and you don't even have we the churches?
Yeah.
And so we desperately need a revival for life in this country. We desperately need people to come to Christ and come to the understanding that life is sacred. Well, the White Rose is doing the work, and partly because it's a masculine organization, and I would love to hit on that, but go ahead.
I just wanted to also introduce Scott Hord too. Scott Hord back there, Scott Hord Ministries. That man right there is one of my heroes. He has saved over 1,000 children outside of abortion clinics, and more than that, just given life-altering, life-changing resources to their moms, giving them rent and apartments and cars. And I mean, the whole narrative that we only care about human beings before they're born is the most sadistic and vicious lie that, of course, the other side is capable of. But that my brother right there, both of those brothers are huge blessings to me, guys that I would go to battle with and give my life for. So yeah.
Amen. Well, I think part of our victory in this election cycle with Trump and the kind of sweep that we had with all of the swing states and the House and the Senate and everything. I mean, it was a repudiation of all this. But the reason that we were victorious was in no small part because men came out finally. Men historically abstain from a lot of these things and don't vote and don't get involved. And there has been a great psyop against life based on the argument that men don't have a voice in this at all, and men should, hang back. And the truth is that that's a lie from the pit of hell, because we are protectors, and not only are we to protect the life of those children that are being murdered, but protect the souls of those women that are being raped when they have abortions. I've looked into the eyes of many women that I've, argued with in the past. And when I was young, I would just kind of just argue, and I'm going after them, not realizing that many of these women are carrying this wound, this deep wound that they had an abortion. And I've told this story on my show before, but I remember, the Spirit stopping me one time and me looking at this gal and saying, God can forgive you. And she burst into projectile tears, weeping, boom. Still makes me emotional because it was so intense. And that's the heart that we need to have for these folks, that when they are, shrieking and screaming at you, they murdered one of their babies. And that is the drama and the heaviness of that is
and
intense.
It's so convenient for the other side, because the price for healing is you have to admit that you've done that. You can't get healing if you don't want it, right? And so and the statistics show 1 out of 3 women now are post-abortive, which is a wild statistic, right? But think about it. You have 2 options. You either double down and triple down on your decision, justifying everything you feel inside, covering yourself with all of these crazy justifications, Or you have to face the reality. What's the other option? You face this reality that you killed your own child? How crazy is that? And so many people, I'm so convinced these women outside of these abortion rallies and all this stuff are just women that are so broken inside. And they can only come to the realization that that I'm justified in this because the other is just too painful to realize, you know? So
yeah, well,
it's a fight.
It is, but again, you know, men need to stand up, and they need to stand up in another big way, which, you know, the left will throw this at you, and it's true, is that, you know, men have been going and, you know, knocking up their you know, girlfriends, their mistresses. You know, people that they don't, you know, women that they don't care about. You know, now it takes two to do that, of course. But you know, the feminist movement and the push to abortion and consequence-free sex has created this world that we're in that you know, men have taken advantage of, and men need to step up, be fathers, take care of women, get married, you know, do all of those right things. And so there needs to be a simultaneous real shaming for the guys that engage, you know, in that world and allow abortions and everything to be happening because they're not doing their part.
Abortion is it's the fruit of a leviathan of godless ideologies with, you know, Roe v. Wade didn't exist in a vacuum. It was a result of what happens when you push licentiousness and unsolicited sexual liberation on a society and free love. It's just enslavement. The founding fathers knew this. They talked about how religion was essential to freedom, because you can't give people unlicensed liberty without a bedline foundation of virtue. And so if you can inculcate the culture in godlessness and licentiousness, you can enslave them, because the most free society is a society capable of self-government. The smallest form of government that exists in society is self-government. And if you can't govern yourself, guess what? You're going to need a powerful outside government to restrain you. So it's not a surprise that is the intention. That's the agenda of this culture of death, is to sow seeds of licentiousness and sexual liberation and slavery, to shackle men and sell them the solution of easy solutions.
If you want to see how wicked it is at its early stages, the whole you know, abortion industry and, you know, everything that came of that, watch the film The 1916 Project, which was produced and put out by the White Rose Resistance. It's excellent.
Millions of people have seen this film now. It's been overwhelming success, man. We're so happy.
Yeah, and what it does is tie all of those things back to these seminal moments with a group of people that include Margaret Sanger, the founder, and eugenicists, and, you know, people who wanted to, you know, end the black race. It ties it back to
population control.
Alfred Kinsey and the sexual revolution and all of the deviancy that's come into our culture. All of them were pals.
Yep.
All of them were hanging around together. All of them were conniving, you know, under, you know, the spirit of darkness to corrupt and destroy our Christian culture, and they largely succeeded. Which is why, you know, we're working so hard to bring it back.
Yeah, like literal chief Nazi racial theorists on the Nazi Party were founding board members and confidants and disciples, you know, of Margaret Sanger. And so wild. She slept her way up the levers of power with all of these men. So ironic that 20th century, the bloodiest century of human history, a young woman who same era as same decade, I believe, as Hitler and Stalin, this young nursing school dropout ends up producing an ideology and a movement that rivals the death toll of both of those men to the nth degree. Like overwhelming. Billions of people, I think now worldwide, have been slaughtered by that ideology. So
yeah. All right. So how do we see the film? How do we follow the White Rose?
So yeah, 1916 Project film on X, free right now. It's going to be taken down. We give a quick little time frame that people can see it for free. But on X, I think it's either the 1916 Project film or 1916 Project film on X. I think almost 3 million views on it now. Not to mention, we've had thousands of churches across America screening the film. Once it's down, if you want to have your church sign up to see it for free, just go to the 1916project.com, I believe. It's either .com or I think it's .com, and sign your church up. Absolutely free. We can have a showing at your church. So.
Yeah, it's definitely worth it. Worth your time. It's excellent, and all of these things. When you see how things are so tied to the enemy's plan and how these things are connected and all these folks are friends, I think it's very faith affirming. So it's worth watching. Talk about what you're doing this weekend. And oh, by the way, AJ is preaching at Dayspring Star Sunday morning, which is our church that we planted. And he'll be doing some worship with Michelle and the girls as well. So. I got to wake up hearing them do the rehearsal this morning, so it's great.
Sorry about that. I was not warm. My voice in the morning, especially after 2 a.m. cigars, is rough.
People don't know that AJ is multi-talented. Has a beautiful voice.
Oh, thank you, brother.
So yeah, it'll be great worship and great fellowship, and we feed you afterwards. We feed everybody lunch at Dayspring. So Dayspring Star, if you want to. Come and join us.
And if you're in the Boise area, he's asking what we're doing this week. We're launching a training. We actually had a huge night of didactic training last night, in classroom training, just to educate and equip the church and pro-life community on how to articulate the pro-life message. And today, after this, I'm running right over to the freeway overpass over is it Eagle Road? I can't remember the cross streets, but we're doing a day of we're doing freeway overpasses with abortion messaging, anti-abortion messaging, and pro-life messaging. And we're doing a huge candlelight vigil tonight at the Planned Parenthood in Ontario to really get the church rallied around and pray to end abortion in this area. Babies are being killed 50 minutes from here in Ontario. So
so if you guys are interested in learning sidewalk counseling, if you want to be there and support any of those things, come to us afterwards. If those of you that are online, go to the White Rose Resistance. You can find information on all that stuff. But it is
also
really
email me aj@thewhiterose.life too. We'll get you hooked up.
Yeah, excellent. All right. Well, hey, anything more on that, or are you ready to shift some gears? I would love to talk about wonderful things.
Yeah.
Well, we obviously had a great result from our election, and a couple of observations I had. I think you could not underestimate their ability to cheat on the other side, and we saw that all across the country. And what I was hoping for happened, which was we learned from our mistakes, and we had undercover people, we had cameras, we had things from James O'Keefe to what Turning Point was doing to citizen journalists all across the country as direct observers of what they were doing. And if you saw, some of it the media was not reporting on, but there were all kinds of incidences of fraud and cheating that were kind of stopped.
Yeah.
And that because eyeballs were on them. And so it made it very difficult, which is why you saw the gap between the number of votes that they got in 2020 versus the number of votes that they had for Kamala Harris, who was the greatest candidate that ever ran for any office ever in the history of the universe.
Right.
They polished her up I mean, I was saying that they, polished that turd up to
wild.
look like gold.
It's crazy, man.
And I mean, it was a blow mind to watch them go from, Biden is the guy to all of a sudden Kamala Harris, who had the
greatest
worst
sliced bread.
Yeah, she had the worst rating as a vice president ever in history. She was just a very unlikable person. The more she talked, the worse it was for her. And you watched all of this go down, and all of the propaganda efforts, all of the energy that they did, pumping her up, including paying $10 million to Beyonce, and they did so much bait and switch stuff. People were there thinking that they were going to see a little mini concert. They were doing all of these games to get people to show up to her rallies, and they just couldn't pull it off. So we happily that night got to see the result, which, I was predicting, and I was wrong, that we wouldn't really know for a few days. And I wasn't alone in that prediction. We were expecting some legal challenges and things, but what we wanted was for it to be too big to rig. And that's what it ended up being, which is great. A lot of people who never voted before, low propensity voters, people that were on our side, but, thought that it was inevitable that we were going to lose, that they were going to cheat. People came out, and you saw a wholesale repudiation of the woke mind virus, that culture, everything there. So we're back, people. But the work is not finished.
I think the takeaway for what I do and what we're trying to do at the pro-life thing is that so much of the messaging, and this is a huge takeaway that cannot be underestimated, is that the biggest mistake in the last, I think, 20 years of the pro-life movement is taking this defensive approach and trying to do messaging that tries to get the other side to vote our way. And what happens is with that is you alienate your base by not energizing them at all. And so what we saw with Trump is that, look, he did pull people from the other side, but what really won it for him was the unprecedented energy in his own base to rally them and get them to the polls. And what I mean by that for us is, what are the statistics on Christians not even voting? 60 million Christians, and I think 20 million of them even vote. And so it does not take a majority to prevail. And it turns out, if you message abortion hurts women instead of abortion is murder and dismembering of a human being or poisoning them in the womb, that type of messaging doesn't energize the very people that think the only reason, look, if abortion is wrong because it's bad for the women taking it, look, let them make their own decision. But the only reason to end abortion is it's killing a human being. So if you don't message on the foundational principle and the entire strength of this movement as to why it shouldn't, in this case, just like in many other cases of the law that limit bodily autonomy, this is the whole bodily autonomy thing is kind of silly. Every law limits bodily autonomy. You can't steal people, you can't use your body to steal other people's stuff, right? But the only thing that is powerful enough to bring this movement to an overwhelming majority is the fact that you're killing a human being. And if you sacrifice that in an effort to message to women about bodily autonomy rights, look, the best person to determine their own bodily autonomy rights is them. So if I think the best messaging piece for us is you can't abandon the babies. Abortion is wrong because it kills a human being, not because it harms women. It just happens to do that also. But that can't be the message that brings people to the polls.
No, and that's a great point. And that is, by the way, why Trump performed so well in the few weeks leading up after they were, the other side spent more than $1 billion and are $20 million in the hole right now.
Yeah.
And that included, $1 million payments to Oprah and the Beyonce payments, and $5 million here, $5 million there, to people to show up to endorse. I mean, how bad is your candidate if you have to just be paying people to endorse? And they did that all over the place. We have people who are social media influencers on our side. We have billionaires, so Elon Musk being one. We have folks that spend money and all that sort of stuff to help Trump win. But we have an organic and energized following, that is natural, right? And even the people who are being paid as influencers online and things like that are generally, Trump fans, share our values, all stuff. The other side does not have that.
Yeah.
They aren't animated by any real kind of positivity and real
philosophical foundations.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. The other side, are truly the grifters, right? And that's why they call us grifters. They always signal it's the iron law of woke projection, as James Lindsay calls it. But that's what they're doing, and so that can only be sustained for so long. But the Trump campaign went right out swinging and saying that they want men in the locker rooms with your daughters, and they went right out unapologetically appealing to the muscular class in this country, the people that are doing the work, the people that aren't in the ivory towers, and that got people to the polls and happening. And then in a super positive sign that I'm very excited about, we are getting incredible nominations right off the bat from Trump. I mean, he is nominating some of the most aggressively effective people to serious roles. Matt Gaetz. I mean, Matt Gaetz is an unstoppable guy. They extorted him. They tried to extort him for, I think it was $25 million, him and his wealthy family. But our government, former intelligence and FBI officials and things like that tried to extort him. There's a dude in prison right now serving a 5-year sentence for what he did, trying to make Matt Gaetz out to be a pedophile human trafficker. Yeah. Right. It did not succeed because it was not true. And Matt Gaetz just plowed ahead unapologetically. Fought it hard. Where there were pushes to have him resign because he was under investigation, all these sort of things. And he came right out in a press conference and said, "I'm being extorted. Yep. It's under investigation right now. Here's what went on." But anybody, and you guys have noticed this pattern, but why is everybody on their side pedophiles? That's what the left does. But they automatically come out, and you get, what happened to Russell Brand. As soon as he gained popularity in the conservative movement, people from decades ago, can't come out and they try to Me Too him. The second anybody, Pete Hegseth, the moment they announced that Pete Hegseth, now he's a Christian nationalist. He's got a Jerusalem cross tattoo.
That must be a Nazi symbol.
He's a Nazi. You're putting him in, and then women came out of the woodwork instantly. He was inappropriate. Boom, 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 boom. That's what they do. It's the same thing that they do to everybody.
Old tired play,
right?
Because they have nothing philosophically robust. All they have is
the worst ideas on the planet.
Yeah, free sex and woke platitudes. Right. All they have is, you don't like me because you're racist. That's all they have.
Yeah.
So, in reference to the fight that we have, I think we should probably talk about the abortion amendments that.
Let's talk about how that went down, because that was, I think, largely positive. So talk, tell everybody. So by the way, so Roe v. Wade, when it got overturned, AJ was there on the steps, and we have the best picture, if we can cue that up, the best celebratory picture, which was hanging at my house until we moved. It's in storage right now, but it'll be hanging in my house again. But AJ, gave me that picture and signed it. And
it was awesome.
Just beautiful.
That morning, we planned. We didn't know when Roe was going to be overturned. We thought it was going to, or if it was going to be. But I was at the grocery store and I saw this bottle of champagne. I'm like, I'm going to pick that up just in case. And we just happened to do it this morning. It went wild when Roe was overturned, and ended up being like right on the front page of the New York Times. Was like me popping a champagne bottle, and iconic moment. So really, really cool.
But just a beautiful moment in history. Well, look, the pro-abort side, the people that want to murder kids, the people that are sacrificing children to Moloch, are tireless. The evil is tireless. And that's why, although like I joked that, okay, we have a week or two of celebration and rejoicing and smiling. Yeah. And then we immediately have to get back because they never stop. And abortions have, because of the abortion pill and other things, have essentially increased because they put the pedal to the metal right away. And so as soon as Roe v. Wade, got overturned, they went to work.
Yep.
So talk about what they've been doing at the state level.
And so just a brief kind of primer, like we're glad that Roe v. Wade was overturned, super happy. But if you think about it, we're going from this facade of abortion being a constitutional apparent right to overturning that from the federal perspective and now giving the states unlicensed liberty to either end abortion or enshrine it to the day of birth. And so while we're happy that this whole fictitious lie that abortion could even be a right protected in the Constitution, right? We're glad that's done with, but at the same time, let's think about this. You can't enslave a human being based on popular vote. How crazy it would be was like, we think slavery should be, I'm against slavery, but I think it should be up to the states. How crazy is that, right? But for some reason, we're everybody, even people on our side, even politicians on our side, are completely comfortable with leaving the issue as to whoever lives and dies. We would think it unthinkable to enslave somebody by popular vote at the state level, but somehow it's acceptable to kill human beings by popular vote at the state levels. But aside from that, that is the downside of Roe, is that you give people that want to kill children unlicensed ability to do so if they do so by democratic processes. So what we've seen, and I don't think we were prepared for at the state level, was all of these states trying to enshrine the right to abortion in their state constitution. We had 10 states this election, through ballot measure, try to enshrine abortion with essentially no limits, because we found out that this viability loop is just a massive loophole, and anybody can justify through medical exceptions and all these things unlicensed ability to, say I was depressed, therefore I need a medical exception to have an abortion. So states like New York, states like Maryland and Nevada, Arizona, many states, there was 10 states on my laptop died, I had them all here, but 10 states on the books that tried to enshrine the right to abortion. And we had been losing all of these. Many of these states that even tried already had virtually no gestational limits, but they just decided to enshrine it in the constitution of those states that can never be overturned unless we had a massive ballot measure in the opposite direction. So, but praise God, we finally got some wins under our belt, which is huge. And I can speak to some of those because this is the thing, the messaging from the right, and especially GOP, has moved in the pro-abortion direction to maintain power and to win elections, because the messaging has been, we can't win on abortion. We can't win. We love babies, but we can't win. And we in order to do anything, we need power. So we have to win elections. That has pretty much been blown out of the water now, because we have 3 wins under our belt. And it turned, one of which is Florida, which was such a huge win, because we prove through the numbers that we can win on abortion if you actually care about it. So, like, for instance, in Florida, do you know how much they outspent the pro-life movement? They outspent the pro-life movement by $112 million. They raised $120 million. And we raised, I think, maybe 10 or 12. And they lost. Why? Because the church rallied together, because DeSantis has balls and actually loves babies and has the ability to just say, look, I'm standing on this. I'm speaking out against all the propaganda and lies. We're seeing be barraged with this propaganda machine telling us that women are dying from pro-life laws. And just to let you guys know, women are not. And the simple, easiest way to prove this is, next time you hear some story, find out 2 things: the name and the state, and then go to that state and look up the abortion law, because every single pro-life law gives exceptions saying you can get an abortion if you are having a life-threatening emergency, or if your health or safety or the life of this mother is at stake. Every single one of them. But because people don't have the strength and ability like DeSantis literally put a cease and desist on some of these lies, because it was actually endangering women in the States. So think about it. If you're telling women they're going to either go to jail for getting miscarriage management, or they're going to die from pro-life legislation, guess what's going to happen? They're not going to go to the hospital because of lies and propaganda of this abortion machine, actually endangering women on their side. So DeSantis said, no, I'm going to protect the women and Floridians in my state, and I'm going to correct the record. Literally sends a cease and desist letter to the media saying, don't parrot these lies that are putting women. And that's what happened. Look what happened. We won in Florida. Yeah. If it wasn't for DeSantis, they outspent us for over $100 million, and we would have lost. Florida would have been an abortion destination location. But the states that we won, either we had leadership in DeSantis, or it turns out if you actually care about abortion and you spend the same amount that the pro-abort spend, you win. The only states, Nebraska, South Dakota, and Florida, where we actually matched them dollar for dollar, we won.
Nice.
So my question is, if abortion is so much an issue that women and the women in America want, how come you have to fund it so much to convince them of that?
Well, and they have to lie. I mean, that's the thing, and I'm glad you're bringing that up. What I love about the new state that we are in right now, and this new kind of timeline we're in, DeSantis, Trump, guys like Elon Musk and all that stuff are being offensive and not defensive on these sort of things, and saying, don't lie. The Kamala Harris campaign lied over and over again about the abortion issue. You see accounts on X and other social media lying over and over again, pretending like, an ectopic pregnancy, you're going to just die in one of these states.
Yep.
They conflate other procedures and confuse it intentionally with what an abortion is. Yep. They do that over and over again. Yeah. They no exceptions, not even for the life of the mother. All this stuff. There was a great clip of a Senate hearing on that. Yeah. Where and I don't remember who it was.
I think it was James Langford.
I think you're right. I think you're right. But anyway, he was pressing, are there any laws anywhere in the United States that and he was pressing this woman on her lies, and it's a great. I retweeted it out. but we have to directly confront them with this nonsense. And you, if you are pro-life, need to know these things. Because you need to, push back on the people that, you have conversations with, and hopefully you're having persuasive conversations with people who you love, who have been propagandized, over this time, so that you can, get them to understand this stuff, because all of it is based in lies, all of it's based in fear, and they do that intentionally. We need to be offensive, and we need to have
we just need
politicians that are doing that.
Care enough. Jesus said, "Where your treasure is, there your heart will be." Right? Turns out, if you don't care about abortion and you don't fund the protection of children, you're going to lose. I mean, we spent this for all the state and these ballot initiatives. Our side spent $25 million. Guess how much they spent? Almost $250 million. Right? So we're being outspent at least 2 to 1, 10 to 1, right? At least in most of these states. I mean, yeah, look at what happened in Florida. It was over 10 to 1. And so you're seeing this is, if you don't care about an issue, guess what? You can't win on it. And that's just the fact of the matter. The other thing is why I'm so excited about what we're doing, and not to toot our horn, but like, finally, people are starting to wake up and say, okay, Christian resist, like this age of Christian nice guys has to stop.
Yeah.
And the White Rose has become such a, we're becoming known as the masculine pro-life group, and
we have a lot of gals working with us too.
we
need the women to help, but it is unique in that it does have men that are standing up and men that are leading it.
Men courage and giving them their balls back and saying, "What? Like you're gonna seriously let this propaganda machine silence you and telling you can't defend women and babies? Really? Like you're gonna sit this one out?" And this one never flew with me because these women were paying me to save their babies at the hospital. So, okay, you're going to pay me to save their life when you want it. And then you're telling me to sit back if you want to pull its arms and legs off of his lifeless body, 3 or 4 or 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks older than the ones I'm saving. So I saw right through this. And by the way, what you can't define, you won't protect. So how ironic is it that they can't define what a woman is, but they want to tell you can't protect them because of your gender. So it's propaganda. It's a freaking paper tiger. And I'm sorry, I'm going to defend women and children.
Yeah, agreed. Let's. And we'll keep revisiting this, obviously, as a subject. But
if I sound mad, it's because I love babies. It's because I've held in my arms lifeless, murdered children. And guess what? That does something to you, right? And I think men should get angry and energized about this issue, because how many men are paying child support, but when women want to kill their babies, they endure this suffering and agony that they have zero say in protecting their offspring. Think about we want to talk about all this hurt of women. Think about the silent freaking pain of men. The most chilling and disturbing video I've ever seen in this. There's this video that went viral. Oh my gosh, I could cry just thinking about it. This guy outside of the doors of an abortion clinic, and he is weeping and begging his girlfriend going inside, "Please don't kill our baby. Oof. Please don't kill our baby." This is what men suffer in silence, and they're told that you can't even mourn because your offspring is her body. It's sick and violent and disgusting. We have a silent majority of men grieving in silence with lifeless, murdered mountains of babies that if she chose to kept, his body would be forced to fund and pay for. But if she wants to go deliver him to a butcher to have it cut up, he's freaking hamstrung.
And burned for energy.
Yep.
I mean, which is those babies that you recovered. I mean, that whole medical waste company that was picking things up were taking it to be burned for fuel for Curtis Energy Company to light DC. If that's not ironic.
Yep. And how sick is it that you tell that guy that he can't even protect it? He can't have a say in protection of his own child.
Yeah. No, it's something, again, that we need to be tirelessly fighting. So, I'll give another shout out to White Rose and the work that you're doing. And for people in anywhere in the country, if you're interested in finding out where the chapters are or getting involved in other organizations, will help you. If you're here in the Treasure Valley, greater Boise area, come help us, because again, it's a 45-minute drive, outside of Idaho to go get an abortion, and we need to be affecting our neighboring states as well.
Amen. Q&A time or what?
Yeah. Let's get to it.
One question that I have is regarding some statistics you said earlier, AJ, regarding voting and the church. And the pathetic attendance or voting rate for the church.
Yeah.
What do you think are the specific reasons why the church has such a poor showing at the polls, and then how could that be fixed?
Yeah, I think two reasons for this. One is kind of a broader cultural reason, is the last 100 years. So there's always this pendulum swing, right? We have an action and then an overreaction and then an overreaction to that. What I mean by that is, and how that plays out with the church, is you had these revival movements that were huge in bringing massive numbers of people to the faith. The downside of that and the overcorrection of that was, as a result, church became this kind of market-driven thing to get unbelievers in the door. And what happens when you change the message of why you come to church, instead of, if the intention of Sunday isn't to feed and strengthen the sheep, but to basically placate to the goats, what's going to happen in 20 years is the entire thing is we're just giving super softball things, and we're changing the message to get people to say a prayer instead of, Jesus, when he preached the gospel, is like, go sell everything you have and give. Like, if you don't want to do that, I don't care. Like, look, it's not like I need you, right? This is Jesus is like, this is my kingdom. And so we've crafted that, changed that message of repentance and picking up your cross and self-abandonment to this market-driven thing to where you walk an aisle, say a prayer, and ask Jesus, to basically say this popish prayer, and you're good. And then it turns out if you get goats to come in with goat food, you have to keep them with goat food. And then what happens is, over the course of 20, 30, 40, 50 years, is you have a whole culture of Christians and Christian churches where, of course, you're not going to preach against cultural sins and cultural things, because it's going to offend people, and unbelieving people who really aren't Christians are going to stop showing up. So I think that's one of the primary things. The other thing is the left has been really good at this. If they can convince, if they can market moral evil as political ideology, if you can take moral matters and craft them and market them as political, you can ensure the silence of the church. So because pastors don't want to talk about politics, the enemy's like, okay, well then I'll just abortion, transgenderism, homosexuality, I'll just market all these things as political issues, and then you'll stop talking about it. And so that's what's happened.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. I'll add very quickly to that. Listen, on this show, we're trying to put the man back in mankind, and men abdicated their responsibility in a whole host of things, civic engagement being one, and so that also affects Christian men. The church largely became soft and feminized, and because of the Johnson Amendment, stay out of politics, don't preach politics from the pulpit. To his point, which is great, is everything became political. All the moral issues became politicized. So then, we can't talk about that. We can't compare and contrast political ideologies or people. The most irritating thing I repeat over and over again on X is the Democrat Party platform is wholly incongruent to the Christian faith, which is true. Name any one of their major platform, policy positions. Each one is the antithesis to what God wants. And the things that they advocate for, like the whole woke Christian or woke pastor movement online, they talk about welcoming the stranger in order to excuse an open borders philosophy. Mm-hmm. They talk about love thy neighbor in order to welcome in any kind of deviant sin into the church home. All of that stuff, in addition to softening the message over time, created and just played upon the natural apathy that we have, and largely that men have. So I think the statistic was 51% of Christians were saying that they were voting this time. Yeah, which is higher than in the past in a lot of respects, which is good. But it's absolutely stupid.
Yeah. Yeah, city council meetings used to be about like zoning laws. Now it's like drag queens.
Yeah,
right. Yeah. It's just to show you how politics has changed, because the left has co-opted everything as moral and created and as political. So,
all right, next question.
Yep.
All right. So since the Republican Party has shifted to the left on some major issues, what's our next step to get them to move back to the right?
Oh, this is a great one. Okay, so because we had this repudiation, I think you're going to see more bravery in the party. So right now, there was a movement, and those of you that have been paying attention to politics, we crushed the RNC, right? Getting Ronna McDaniel out of there, getting a kind of wholesale philosophical change. TPUSA and Charlie Kirk has been known as the new RNC. Charlie needs to be recognized as one of the major heroes. TPUSA, and I'm on the board, we hired hundreds of ballot chasers. We went out and got people to vote, right? The things that the RNC should have been doing that had not been doing in the past. They were just controlled opposition, willing to be losers. Well, the round one was us against the Marxists and globalists, okay? We won round one. Now, it's not over, because this is a very dangerous time for Donald Trump. Security is crazy around him, praise God, but they still want him dead. They do not want him to ascend to the presidency on January 20th. This time is very, very critical. They do not want our appointments to be gone through the Senate. That's why the Senate voted in secret for their new leader. There's a bunch of shenanigans that will continue on. That's round two. Round two is that we need to reclaim our political party, because it is a two-party system. We are not going to have a third party. Mm-hmm. Don't vote third party. Let's put the pressure on, and let's beat these people, and let's restore a Christian foundation to the party platform.
Yep, that's good. I think for us, we can't. We always think about like national politics and presidents, and but I think all politics now is local, especially Amen. For the pro-life movement. And so it's amazing how much power you have in your district. What I would like to see is there's a truth in politics that, like, two truths. One, if you give politicians the least amount, they will take it every time. And so you have to force them to do what you want them to do. And you do that by playing hardball politics. The issue here in Idaho, obviously, is that you guys got a ton of rhinos here, right? And so you have to get creative about flushing them out. And you do that by running this there's a kind of insider baseball here, but there's a whole system of politics called FACL. I don't know if you guys have heard of that. Foundation of Applied Conservative Leadership, I think is what it is. But one thing that they will do is they'll find a way to like force a vote on an issue. And then what politicians don't want to do, especially if they're rhinos, is actually vote on it. And so they'll give you every single excuse in the book to why they can't do something or they're hamstrung to do something. And, but if you actually get them to vote on it, then you force them to show their cards, because the people that are putting them in office are now saying, okay, well, what? You voted that way on that? So you get these people to expose themselves, and then you primary the hell out of them and get them out of office.
Yeah, and we've got some work to do here in Idaho along those lines. Our senators did not vote for Rick Scott, and they needed to, because that was the will of the people. Okay, if you looked at all of what the people wanted as far as Senate Majority Leader, Rick Scott was at the top of every single poll. The movement that just elected Donald Trump wants a real leader to back him in the Senate. We now, for the first time, have this clean sweep. We need to use the political power that we have just gained, which in the past, Republicans have been terrible at that. Absolutely wasting all the political capital. That's why so many people, by the way, did not vote, in the past too, is because we all felt like, oh, it doesn't matter. No, we want to see this government, right-sized. Yeah. We want to see things change. We want to see Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy cut this thing down to size. Yeah. We need that, and we need to hold the people accountable. And here in Idaho, we need better state representatives, and we need better federal representatives. All right, next question.
Yeah, so this isn't actually a question as much. It's not obvious to me that men go from apathetic to actually being able to stand up overnight. They need incremental improvement. So just some practical application for anybody who's listening to this, actually getting comfortable with discomfort. Like, both of you do BJJ. Mm-hmm. You don't get good overnight. Just like you don't get comfortable standing up for your beliefs or having difficult conversations. So, if you want to bring masculinity back, then, actually go put on your fridge. Yeah. Did I do 3 difficult masculine things? Yeah. Something as simple as asking for a 10% discount on your coffee. I mean, really, or if you go to Chipotle, and they give you small portions. Just be okay saying, you know what? I don't think I want that today. Yeah. So actual practical application, you have to train for it. It's not going to just happen.
Amen.
100%. By the way, I have a comment to your comment. Would you save some fitness for the rest of
I was just going to say that same thing.
My goodness, man. My goodness, All right.
That's funny.
He's absolutely right, though. So I would say this on my show during COVID, where like so many people just complied without any resistance at all, right? And make it uncomfortable for the people asking you to put a mask on. Okay, I to whatever comfort you have, be just one step beyond that. There's our girls are violinists, and they started out in the violin world with the Suzuki method. And Dr. Suzuki had this idea of easy plus one. So stepping, you may not be somebody that's going to argue and directly confront somebody like, AJ might. AJ's been arrested a bunch of times, right? You may not be that, but you can, give somebody a frown or say, really, should I, or just anything that creates a headwind against the tyrants and the Karens and the people that want to, subvert morality, just anything you can do. We're not all Mark, we're not all, gonna put everything on the line, right? But become comfortable with at least a little bit of confrontation. And over time, you'll be surprised, how many people during COVID, grew and were able to stand up against these people. It's the ants versus the grasshoppers in A Bug's Life. If all of the ants stood up and said, no, we're not going to wear these stupid masks that are proven not to work, they could not have enforced it on us all.
One thing on that real fast. So I won't say that. I grew up as a pretty passive young man, actually. And it took a while for me to grow into learning how to be disagreeable. I
come by that naturally.
But honestly, a mentor said a few things to me that changed my life. He said, AJ, no one will stand with you on Judgment Day. You stand alone on Judgment Day. So that means nobody's perspective or thoughts of you or opinion on you ultimately matter and will have any bearing on your eternal destiny. It's only one question between you and God. And if your relationship with God is there, then the greatest God-man, the greatest being in all of the universe is your friend. What else can you fear? And so, and then he also said this, the Holy Spirit is always solution-oriented. I'm actually going to talk about this on Sunday. Because my guilt was the thing that my conscience, I had a very, overstimulated conscience. I felt guilty about anything. I'd wake up, I felt guilty. And literally, I was so easily manipulated because I didn't have a moral foundation that said, you're good. What gave me that confidence to look at anybody else and say, dude, pound sand, was because not only was I good before God and my eternal security was solidified before him, but then I knew that on that Judgment Day, which is the only day that matters, no opinion of all these little people around me are going to have any bearing on that day.
Amen. Any more questions?
Yeah. Are you guys familiar with Chuck Schumer's stance on abortion?
Not particularly. I mean, obviously, I would assume he's pretty liberal on it, right?
Outgoing Senate Majority Leader, for those of you that are not aware.
Yeah. So, somebody typed this question in, and they pointed out that he is pro-abortion, unwavering, strong stance on pro-abortion, obviously.
Yeah.
But what's interesting, and I have no idea if this is actually true or not, but this person typed that he has support for Efrat, which is an anti-abortion group for Jewish women in Israel. And so the question is, why would he support pro-life in Israel and pro-choice in America, if you have any knowledge on that?
Next question.
I don't know that. I don't know that to be true. So I'm not going to comment deeply. The everything's the Jews' fault question. It seems to come up in every one of these, and I don't believe that. And I am pro Israel. I'm also unequivocally, I believe that we can criticize a secular government for their behavior. And we can, without being anti-Semitic, criticize Jews that have bad behavior. We can criticize a government that has bad behavior. We can hold Israel accountable for waging war in the best way possible, and I think we should. I do not believe that the Jews are responsible for all the darkness in the earth, which is somehow bubbled up over this whole election cycle. And I think a lot of that is the enemy. I think a lot of that is to manipulate and divide the right wing, because a lot of that, the globalists win based on divisiveness. It's a Marxist tactic, right? It used to be that they divided on the base of class, wealth, the haves versus the have-nots, and then it became about race. It became all of these sort of things in order for them to, to take us over. They need us in chaos. I believe that this rise of anti-Semitism, while there's a very spiritual nature to it, obviously, right? It is also a technique designed to divide us. Next question.
You had mentioned that in 2026, abortion would be on the ballot again in Idaho. What are some very specific things that the audience listening who are in Idaho can do to help with that situation?
Yeah. First, if you do nothing else, live not by lies. So I think the number one thing that everybody can do is just anytime abortion is mentioned, you have to stop being silent about it. Sophie Scholl said this incredible phrase, and she just really consolidated the issue as to what was going on in her day with all of the genocide of the 20th century and everything going on. She said the real damage is not done by evil men, because evil men have always done evil things. She said the real damage is done by all those millions of honest men and women who just want to survive. And so you have to, at the bare minimum, be vocally against abortion. It's not enough that we are pro-life. We have to be anti-abortion. And this issue is popular. It's popular to be pro-abortion and acceptable because they have the bravery to own the narrative. We have to change that. So at the very least, live not by lies. Second of all, please get involved with White Rose Resistance. We are starting a chapter here. It's vital. Like we will not end this unless we get off our butt. We cannot end abortion and keep abortion out of Idaho on the couch. It can't happen. And so please get involved. We are mobilizing. We have to change our hearts and minds, and we have to educate people against all the propaganda. They're going to come in here and say all they have is lies. And so abortion can only get passed in Idaho, I'll tell you this, if they are successful about lying about it.
Yeah, and that means we need to directly confront the lies,
Exactly.
right? Not passively. I mean, like, be in people's face, okay, with boldness, all right? Now, I mean that in, we need to be respectful, we need to be lawful, but rejecting people's lies, like, directly, and say that's a lie from the pit of hell. I mean, and call it out.
Yeah.
And persuade your friends and family that have been given to the propaganda. Show them the truth.
Yeah.
Get them to watch Seth and the 1916 Project and AJ and get them educated on these things, which means you need to get educated on these things. But how we're going to win here, I'm going to make a couple of what I believe are going to be some, I think, pretty accurate predictions about what is going to happen over the coming years. Assuming Donald Trump, ascends to the presidency, pray for him right now. It's a very dangerous time. They are not going to stop. They take you'll notice that the left always gets stunned, like they got punched in the face, right? They got punched in the face. The next day there's the weeping, what happened here? Then it's Donald Trump cheated, which we're not allowed to deny elections. I learned that the last time around. So, I love that people are pushing back on them there. But you saw the markets respond, right, to Trump. You saw the business environment and people breathe a big collective sigh of relief.
Tangible, right? You can feel it.
Opportunities can abound. The future looks bright. We have momentum on our side. We need to rout out these Democrats in Republican skin suits here in Idaho.
Yep.
Okay, we need to destroy them. We need to primary each one of them. We need to run for those small little local offices. We need to rout out the bureaucrats. We need to get behind guys like Josh Tanner, who's doing an amazing job holding them accountable financially. I mean, that guy's a whiz. He's one of the brightest talents that we have, and we need to insist upon them voting the way we want them to vote.
This is a political question, and it calls for a little bit of speculation. And I know President Trump is still assembling his new team, but who else he hasn't named yet would you like to see on it? For example, I think Carrie Lake would be a perfect czar of election integrity, and she can start in Arizona. Dr. Ben Carson, to me, is a very gentle, spiritual man. I think President Trump could put him in some sort of spiritual role to help this country continue in that direction. Anybody else that you see that he hasn't named to a position yet, or a position that hasn't been named yet?
Yeah.
Let me just say, let me answer that question in a different way for the pro-life movement. Here's our requests for the Trump administration for the pro-life movement. Like, he said he won't sign a national federal abortion ban, of course. Like, I don't think anybody in the GOP wants that, right? And so it's kind of surprise, surprise. Like, the pro-life movement isn't at this point even expecting that, although we're demanding it. But what things that he can do? Defund Planned Parenthood. Like, we give almost $1 billion a year, $700 million a year to Planned Parenthood.
And they're the ones that are responsible for trans and kids right now too. I mean,
Planned Parenthood is the largest provider of cross hormone sex therapy for children in the nation. They went from being the largest abortion provider, still are, but to the biggest pivot. Cash cow now is the largest provider of hormone replacement therapy in the nation.
Which is, look, so I believe that this nation, has the potential to repent. And I think, getting Donald Trump in office was part of that, right? Again, round one, right? We need to do round two, but our enemies are sterilizing their kids and murdering them in the womb, right? We need to, we need to encourage our young people to get out there, get busy, get married, build wonderful families, right? That's how we're going to ultimately win. But all of this generational problems require generational solutions. Yeah. So that's the world that we're in right now. But to answer your question, because it's a great question, you already answered it a little bit there. You threw out some great names, and I appreciate those. I'll add to that list our very own friend who's been here at the Old State with me, Madison Cawthorn, is on the short list for ATF. Him becoming ATF director would be a wonderful thing. I think you're absolutely right. So Carrie Lake, that election was stolen from her. People don't realize how deep the cartel is involved in Arizona and Arizona politics. They own the Democrat Party there. They've paid off homes for Democrat Party politicians who suddenly do not have mortgages. I mean, it's really, really dark, really, really deep. And a Carrie Lake would be excellent as a election integrity czar. That would be a wonderful thing. Tom Holman is one of my favorite picks. That guy is going to declare war on the cartel. We need to declare war on the cartels. They are a parallel government. They're an evil force in the world, and they need to be destroyed. And they operate all over the country. They are embedded all over the place, and they need to be routed out. I think Dr. Ben Carson's a wonderful person. I'm so excited about so many of his picks already. I mean, Matt Gaetz for AG is amazing. Pete Hegseth is going to be phenomenal. He spoke here last year at the Idaho Family Policy Gala. He was the featured speaker. Awesome dude. He is going to be effectively brutal in returning our military back to a semblance of structure and competence again. And that's the leadership's fault. Clearly we have amazing military members on the ground, but they, through the vaccine, routed out some of the best, most effective people. They got them to quit. You named some great folks there, man. Yeah, I'm pumped.
Just to finish that thought for our demands, though, is like defund Planned Parenthood, free all these pro-life prisoners, these grandmas, literally grandmothers sitting in federal prison right now.
Pardon the J6 folks too.
Yeah, and then the third thing for the pro-life is to overturn the FACE Act. So the reason why all these pro-life little grandmas are going to prison is because the only, like, if heaven forbid, but if I refused to leave here, and Mark kicked me out and I wouldn't leave and he had to arrest me, I may or may not go to jail, but I'd probably get about $150 fine.
Yeah.
If I did, if I peacefully sat down and just didn't leave, right? If I did the exact same thing in an abortion clinic, I would be charged with up to 11 years in federal prison. I have 10 friends right now sitting in federal prison, some of which are sitting there for a sentence at the final junction, almost 5 years in federal prison for doing an action that anywhere else would have been a $150 fine and may or may not be an hour or two in jail because of something called the FACE Act. Bill Clinton in 1994 passed the only type of peaceful, nonviolent.
What is it? Free access?
Freedom to Access Clinic Entrances Act. And that made the only type of peaceful, nonviolent trespass a felony federal crime. And the Biden administration is weaponizing this bill because the FACE Act is only 1 year, but it's the pretext for charging conspiracy statutes of robbing somebody of a constitutionally protected right? So Biden found this old KKK law on the books when the KKK was keeping black people from voting. This conspiracy statute, and for the first time ever, applied it to pro-life grandmas, and it's up to 10 years in federal prison. So the first time ever, peaceful, loving people praying and sitting down inside of an abortion clinic are facing up to 11 years in federal prison because of the FACE Act. The FACE Act needs to be repealed. So, but the political impotence for us, the messaging for the GOP, for defunding Planned Parenthood has to be, so get this. Nobody talks about this. I've never heard anyone talk about this besides me and Jason back there. The first 2 years of Trump's presidency, we had both houses. We had the Senate, which means we controlled the funding. Trump did not defund Planned Parenthood, and we gave Planned Parenthood $1 billion in federal tax money. Now, instead of $500,000, we're giving Planned Parenthood $700 million. But that's beside the point. Planned Parenthood gives a quarter of their money to the Democratic Party. And Trump gave $250,000 to de-seat him in 2020 because he didn't defund Planned Parenthood. So largest funded 501c3 ever, I think, in the history of America. It's a no-brainer. If this has been returned to the states and it's no longer a federal issue, why the freak are you funding it with our tax money? This is a no-brainer. You can't on one side say that abortion is no longer a federal issue and then force me to give my federal tax money to fund the poisoning and ripping off of little children's bodies. So it should be a no-brainer.
All right, we got to get you to your banner raising, but one last quick question.
Is there any future sidewalk counseling training that White Rose Resistance has planned in this area?
Yeah, today. Let's go. We are starting a chapter. I'm interviewing some chapter leaders. So if you're up for the job, let me know. But we're planning to tear up Idaho for the next 2 years. We got 2 years to get this done because I don't want to just defeat this ballot initiative. I actually want to close the loophole on chemical abortion in Idaho. Right now, chemical abortion is a free-for-all. You can literally, for free, go online and completely legally send abortion pills to your house, film yourself taking them, send them to the police, and it's totally decriminalized. We have to close the loophole on this because it's a bloodbath. Oh, yeah. So, Thursday next week, Scott Hord, I thought he was signaling me because it's time to go, but Scott Hord's doing a training, a pro-life.
The best sidewalk
counseling training
in history.
Yeah,
he's the man. So Thursday, where is it at? What are the specifics? How do we sign up?
Yeah, so we're going. Contact me, AJ at thewhiterose.life. We're meeting in Ontario at the Planned Parenthood out there, and we're doing sidewalk counseling training, in hands-on training, teaching you how to save babies and help women.
Amen. All right. Anything else?
Donations for people who want to donate, but also how does your money get spent? Like travel, or where does most of it get spent?
Most of it gets spent on the work. We are launching. We have way more interest and way more opportunities than we know what to do with. My goal by 2030 is to launch have a state chapter launched in all 50 states of America. So
I just signed our 990. We spend our money very wisely, and listen, nothing that I'm a part of doesn't. That's kind of my rule if I'm going to serve in any board capacity. I'm not one of the wounded warrior guys where we spend 95% of it on travel and jets and entertainment to raise everything. I think that's disgusting, and you can see that record of those organizations. So be careful where you give your money. Make sure that it's getting to the actual work that needs to be done, and not just paying people to run around raising money. And so these guys do it right and are very, very effective.
And if you don't like what we're doing, we take complaints. You can just write all your complaints on $100 bills and send them in. So.
All right, we have a tradition with our guests. The final question for you, and you're going to look right into this camera right here as you answer it, would be, if you had everybody's attention in the country and they had to pay attention to you for 60 seconds, and you were able to deliver them a message, and there's no way they could avoid, listening to it. I'm rambling a little bit, so you have some time to think.
Okay.
You have a little bit of time to think here. What would you tell them if you had 60 seconds?
Human life, it's a biological fact that it begins from the moment a human being begins. Look, Jesus saves, and there's forgiveness for the sin of abortion. But it doesn't change the reality that it's not okay to kill an innocent human being. We love you. We care for you. There's a whole class of human beings that are being overlooked, not because of the color of their skin, not because of their IQ or any distinguishing factors about them. Their class is being overlooked because of where they're located, because of their level of development, and things that are utterly arbitrary to their humanity and their rights. Let's work for an inclusivistic and holistic, to use the terms of the left. Let's work for true equality that exists only in the humanity and rights that every single human being carries, simply by the fact that we all share something equally. And it's not skin color, it's not IQ, it's not development, it's humanity. Either all human beings have human rights or they're up for grabs.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us, sir. Appreciate this. I know you got to get to the banner raising. Do we have a location, a firm location for it, guys, in case anybody wants to head over there and raise that banner on the freeway? Do we know what it is? Hey, look it up or text Kevin so he can give you the cross streets. Sign up for my email list. I'm going to be doing some things going forward to keep you apprised. The battle is not over. And in fact, this is a very, very critical time. So BryceEddy.com, if you want to join my mailing list, I'm going to be putting out probably about every other week some things that we are doing. Invite you to watch some of these shows, but also let you know how you can get involved and what we need to do to become self-reliant, what we need to do to become winners. So thanks, guys. To God be the glory, and we are out.